Bitcoin is officially trading below $80,000. We are down over 20% since the last major high that we put in at 98,000. Now, not to brag or anything, but I have been giving you this 98,000 target for quite a long time, actually for over 2 months. As you can see, I had predicted for the high to be put in anywhere between $96,000 and $98,000 on Bitcoin. And I was looking for a short trade all the way back down to $77,000. And ladies and gentlemen, it seems like my prediction was absolute perfection. We had the high just below $98,000 and we have now reached well below $77,000. So this prediction was 100% accurate. Now stick around because I will be giving my next predictions for both the next short trades and the next long trades. But before we get into that, I also want to show you that just 6 days ago, I had warned you that Bitcoin was probably going to make new lows. Even in my thumbnail, I suggested that we could have seen prices go from 91,000 back below $80,000. And I was speaking about a place to take a short in order to take this well down below $80,000. Unfortunately, the level that I gave you, which was around 91.2, was missed very slightly by just 1%. However, I have been holding my shorts from much higher, 93.2, where I am now making over $8,000 in profit, as you can see. And I had given you this short trade on Pippin when price was still at 48 cents. You can see that that short trade played out to perfection with over a 70% fall. And as you can see in my account, I am making over 600% with just 10x leverage, shorting from 51 cents to 18 cents. And of course, I am not the only one who made money on this. My community followed my signal and made 600% as well, as you can see. Here's another guy, another member right here, another member right here. So people in my Discord made money, and you could have made money as well by just watching my free YouTube video. So let's now move on to the next trades that we might have on Bitcoin. First of all, the things that I'm going to be mainly interested in are short trades. And the reason is very simple. We have front run this low that we put in April of 2025 by just a couple of dollars. The chances that this is the low are very, very low. Therefore, I do think that price is going to trade below this price once again at one point. So for this reason, the best thing we can do is to try to find a resistance area where we can take that short and bring this back down below $74,000. And for me, there's 3 different areas of interest where we're going to have to monitor for a bearish reaction before we take our trade. The first area of interest is going to be around 81,000. We can take a Fibonacci retracement from the high to the low. You can see that we have this daily naked point of control, and we have this anchor VWAP from the high lining up pretty perfectly with this area of resistance. Therefore, if we can make our way up to here and we get a bearish reaction, we can look for that short trade to trade this back down. Now, if this level gets flipped into support, then we can expect for price to move up higher. And for me, the next level of interest becomes 86,400. Until this level is reclaimed, I have a bearish perspective on Bitcoin. I think we can simply go and retest this level and move back down. Also because we have this very nice anchor VWAP from the high that we put in at 98,000, which is lining up perfectly with this value area low. So this can be our second point of interest to potentially take that short back down below $74,000. However, if instead we flip this level into support as well, I would expect a move up to this point of control of the range at 91,200. We have some liquidity right here. We have this daily naked point of control. And I think if we get a bearish reaction, this can still look bearish enough to take this back down below $74,000. Of course, we would have to take some profits along the way. Now, if 91,000 gets flipped into support as well, that's where I would change my bias and I would say it is likely that we go and take these 98,000 once again and possibly move back above 100,000. But for now, the bias remains for lower. So these are the 3 points of interest that I have for my short trades. Now, things do change quite a little bit if first we get that long trade setup below this low, as well as below this low that I was speaking about before. Because if we get a simple grab of liquidity, or a failed auction where we trade below and then reclaim the level, that does activate a very valid long trade with the stop loss wherever we're going to put in that low, and we can look for that reversal. Of course, once again, we do need to take profits along the way, possibly at 81,000, 86,000, and 91,000. But if this trade is given to me with a bullish reaction, I will for sure take this. So this is my first interesting point for a long. Now, where does my next interesting point come? For my next interesting point, we're going to have to look at this little range from March of 2024 to October 2024. That is where we get that untested old point of control lining up very nicely with the daily level. And I do think it's possible that Bitcoin can make its way down to $66,000. And if we get a bullish reaction, I will once again be looking for that long trade, which I want to be very clear. I will only take this trade if I get a nice bullish reaction, and I will also be taking profits along the way. Now, if this area gets flipped as resistance, that's when I would expect a much bigger move to the downside towards $50,000. And that is where we have to consider this bigger range and where we have this point of control at $57,000 lining up very nicely with this weekly level. Once again, this is going to be an opportunity for a long trade. That is, once again, if we get that bullish reaction. If we don't, there is no trade to take, and I would expect actually a much bigger move to the downside towards $30,000. Now, I don't want to get bearish too early because there are some support levels that I covered where I think we could bounce from, such as 76,000, 68,000. So this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I do want you to keep this scenario in mind as a possible outcome. And by the way, if we see a drop on Bitcoin all the way down to $50,000 or even $30,000, I will be buying all of this area very slowly in spot positions. This is not financial advice. You're allowed to do whatever you want, but this for me is a good opportunity for the long term. So I hope everything is clear. Do remember that I have a free Discord where I share my analysis for free, and you will find the link for that down below.